T-minus 3, 2, 1, ignition.
What you know about this life? Yeah. Just relax, baby, get high. Yeah, you're on your way to the best night ever. No top.
All right, shitheads. Here's your sober portion of the Week 2 recap. Let's go ahead and dive into these matchups. First, we'll start off with me versus Bobby. As you can see, my team just imploded. Obviously, Saquon Barkley getting hurt for the season is a crushing blow. And a once perfect roster is now dwindling into a giant blob of shit, especially if Tom Brady keeps fucking dog like he has been. When your quarterbacks only combine for just over 20 points, that's going to be tough. Kenyon Drake, he got 10.5. He had 20 carries. That's all you can ask for. Any given week, he could get a touchdown, so I'm not too worried about him. Juju didn't really show up, although he had 7 catches. Devontae Adams got hurt, obviously, because fuck me. Really, my only saving grace was Tyler Higbee, who had 3 touchdowns. Hope that lasts. And Alvin Kamara, who just went off without Michael Thomas there to get any targets. So a couple good things for me, mostly dog shit. Plus the Bills let me down by almost losing to Miami, but they didn't, so go Bills. And looking over at Bobby's team, when my quarterbacks combined for just over 25 and his combined for just over 82. So over 83, actually, so I'd fuck me. Bobby had a great week, but he's kind of fucked, at least for the near future, because McCaffrey and Mostert are getting hurt. So that's going to be a tough one to come back from. But in this matchup, Bobby just destroyed me. So I'm just glad I cracked 100 points because it was looking pretty bleak. So thank you, Alvin Kamara. Final score in that one is 123.42 to 152.58. Moving on, we got Hydro Tic Tacs versus Taco. And Hydro Tic Tacs, unfortunately, fell short of Sleeper's expectations, but pretty much nailed the league's expectations of how many points they would score. Phillip Rivers, I gotta say, it's close to my heart. Whenever he throws it, has kind of a good statistical game, but still only gets less than 10. It's a tough thing to rely on Phillip Rivers. Jimmy G getting hurt kind of fucked you, but ultimately he wasn't going to score that many more points anyway. Chris Carson was kind of Andrew's saving grace. Him, Tyreek Hill, and Mike Evans. The only non-quarterbacks to score double digits. So thank them for a solid week. But only 108 points, that's got to be tough. Especially after shit-talking Nick Finley's team, and he absolutely went off. Russell Wilson is pretty much the quarterback to have right now. He's been lighting it up. He only threw it 28 times, but he had 5 fucking touchdowns, and also added 5 carries for 39 yards. So he had an awesome game, and he's had an awesome start to this season. Aaron Rodgers had a solid game, even though 18 points, that's solid. God, if I could get 18 points out of my fucking quarterbacks every week, that would be awesome. But here we are. Derrick Henry, 25 carries, 84 yards, kind of had a Kenyon Drake type game. But that's a good sign that he's going to get a lot of carries. But we'll see if he's on Nick Finley's team for very long. Foreshadowing. We all already know he was traded. Nick Chubb just fucking destroyed the Bengals. So that's going to be the upside of Nick Chubb is some weeks he'll get you almost 30. Some weeks he's going to really fuck dog because he's on the Browns. Tyler Lockett had a solid game. AJ Green, 4.4 points 13 targets though. Wow, 3 catches on 13 targets. That is tough. You kind of hate to see it, but any receiver getting 13 targets is a pretty good sign for the future. Travis Kelce had a solid game, another touchdown. If he gets a touchdown, then he's going to have a great game because he's always going to get a good amount of targets. Marvin Jones got in the end zone for you, Finn. It was just a huge game all around. And the bench even went off. So cheers to Taco for surpassing Sleeper's expectations and having a great week. Final score was 108.3 to 167.72. All right, next matchup, we got Pele Zavano V2 plus the Cleveland Steamers. honestly a pretty solid matchup. No team really shit the bed, although, yeah, really tough playing Benny Snell, and that really fucked you. Because I'm going minus 2.4 when, I don't remember the exact stats, but James Conner just destroyed that week. So you kind of hate to see it. Luckily, the wins and losses don't matter, but you hate to shit the bed in that kind of fashion. Yeah, I guess you didn't really. You could have played Tyler Boyd, had 16.7, but shit happens. But Mahomes had an awesome week. Watson kind of let you down a little bit. Threw it 36 times and only had 13.7 points. That's tough to see. But Dalvin Cook had a great game. Beckham had a great game. DJ Moore had a great game too. So a lot of good stuff coming from Jacob's team. He should be happy. Connor's team kicked ass, 159 points. Lamar Jackson's, even on a relatively kind of down day fantasy-wise, he still had 17 points, which doesn't suck. Joe Burrow's proven to be a solid fantasy play. God, he threw it 61 fucking times, so that doesn't hurt. And if they keep letting him throw the ball and run the ball, he's going to be pretty solid going forward. Edwards-Helaire only had 10, and Josh Jacobs only had 12, but even that doesn't suck if they didn't totally shit the bed. Plus, Josh Jacobs, he got 27 carry, 30 total touches. So that's great to see going forward, especially because he still pulled out the win. The Bears are going to be tough. Allen Robinson should be decent, but he got nine targets, so that's always good to see too. When Terry McLaurin, 25 points, finally had this game where he went off, we'll see if they can kind of him and Dwayne Haskins can connect more consistently, because I think this is going to be the case for McLaurin, kind of like it was last year. It's going to be all or nothing. Jonathan Taylor, who has just blossomed, finally that Marlon Mack isn't there. I can't remember how Nyheim Hines did this week. Haven't really heard about him, so I'm guessing that he wasn't a big factor in the Colts win versus the Vikings, although some had a really high projection on him throughout the season as well. So we'll see if Nyheim Hines can live up to the hype that one person may believe he will achieve. Ultimately, solid week for both these teams. Final score, Pele Zveno 159.4, Cleveland Steamers 143.88. All right, last matchup of the week is a lot of name changes and a lot of sparks flying with this matchup. So we got Sully MJ and Dennis Reynolds, Michael versus T-Bay. Currently, T-Bay's daddy versus Privileged Little Bitch. Huge game across the board. You see Thomas's team, pretty much everybody did well except Adam Thielen, which that just kind of blows. The Vikings are going to be all or nothing, so you kind of hate to see that. But you don't hate to see Kyler Murray score 2 rushing touchdowns and a total of 31 points. You don't hate to see Aaron Jones go off for 46.6 points. That is kind of just a bunch of horse shit. To think that you could have had Chris Godwin instead, who didn't even play this weekend, but you kept Aaron Jones. So, you're probably rethinking that decision, but, you live and learn. Basically, this matchup was highlighted by that 46 points, and then huge quarterback play for Michael's team. Cam Newton had a nutty game, and to imagine if he wouldn't have bitched out on the goal line at the last play of the game, he would have gotten over 40 points, but he couldn't do it. Running backs were kind of lackluster, with Joe Mixon only scoring 10.6. Started Ronald Jones for some reason. To think that you couldn't get a better running back than that is a little pathetic. Poor Leonard Fournette going down to the bench. He's the one who scored all their touchdowns, so that's just too bad for you. He had 28 points. I guess it doesn't really matter because you still scored 190, but you still hate to see it. Ultimately, this game was, the heavyweight matchup with the final score, Michael with 190.9 and T-Bay had 173.22. So let's check out where we're at as far as the total, points for the season, since this is World Cup year and that's what matters. In last place right now, let's see here, we have Hideo Tic Tacs with 236.98 points for. It's been a tough start to the season, and you better really hope that your players start to pick it up around playoff time. Might need to make some trades. We'll see what's going on. Second to last in 7th place right now would be the Cleveland Steamers. Jacobs kind of had a tough start to the season. His week 2 was a lot better than week 1, so I think we'll probably see a lot more consistent scoring from the Cleveland Steamers going forward. In 6th place, that would be Ass Kickers United. My team really shit the bed the first couple weeks. Well, actually, last week wasn't terrible. This week was terrible. Losing Saquon really blows, but luckily my team was pretty deep. As long as Devontae Adams is on the field, we should be all right. But I know my team is born for the playoffs, so I don't care if I lose every fucking game up until week 10. Next, in 5th place, after that, then we finally cracked the 300 mark. So we've got Connor's team, Pele Zavano, V2, just over 300 points. It's 301.82 points for. His team is looking solid. He's got Lamar Jackson, so he could score 40 points any given week. Solid running backs and just solid team. So, probably see pretty consistent scoring there. Right after him, we've got Taco in 4th place. A surprisingly great start from Nick Finley. You love to see that his team just went off in week 2, and hope to see that continue. It'll be very interesting with him. He traded away Derrick Henry, got back Joe Mixon, and he got a solid receiver in Calvin Ridley. I would know because I drafted him, and unfortunately I traded him away. Anyway, Finley seems looking solid, but his running back depth is still kind of in question. I'd expect him to still have a solid, consistent, high-scoring, year. But if any one of those running backs goes down, he might be in trouble. Next up, we've got Bobby's team. Bobby right now is at 325.8 points for. Bobby has been led by his awesome quarterback play. Josh Allen has started the year just going off. So that has been absolutely huge for him. Dak Prescott was supposed to be great this season, and he's been kicking ass. Doesn't hurt that he had 3 rushing touchdowns last week. Hate to see that he was playing me, but, shit happens. Big quarterback play and kind of spotty receiver and running back play. He's got James Conner, who was sitting on his bench last week, which is a tough situation. He's got a couple kind of backup running backs. Raheem Mostert and Christian McCaffrey is going to be the big question mark for him because McCaffrey's going to miss a few weeks. Mostert, we don't know. And with the 49ers running back situation, you never know who's actually going to get the ball a lot. So I kind of expect to see some ups and downs from Bobby's team, but his 2 quarterbacks, if they keep going playing as well as they have been, then it's going to be hard to beat Bobby. Next team after that, we got T-Bay's team. He scored 329.92 points thus far, and his team is pretty stacked from top to bottom. I'd say if anything against him, his receivers could be his Achilles heel. Solid, consistent guys, Robert Woods and Adam Thielen in the starting position. But as you can see this week, Adam Thielen has potential to get. He can be taken as far as Kirk Cousins can take him. So that's always a tough thing. Plus, Vikings are kind of a run-first team. Robert Woods, another guy who should be consistently getting about 12 points a week. As long as those guys can, basically not shit the bed any given week, Thomas's team should be just fine because everybody else is pretty great. Kind of like you saw this week, he scored 170 points when his receivers kind of had lackluster games. But I would expect to see a lot of high-scoring weeks from T-Bay going forward. And finally, in first place right now, after the first 2 weeks, is Sully MJ, T-Bay's daddy. He's scored 339.3 points right now. He has a solid team, but it's going to be very interesting, how his running back situation goes going forward. He traded for Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is a solid option, but, a guy like that who's going to get the ball 30 times a game, you never know if he's going to get injured. And wouldn't that just be terrible for Michael? We'll see if he keeps playing the wrong running backs. Maybe Leonard Fournette will just keep getting touchdowns on his bench. Devin Singletary, not really a viable fantasy option, even though, go Bills. but you never know who's going to get the rushing touchdowns in that offense, unfortunately. But when you have Cam Newton, he's been playing lights out, so if he keeps scoring rushing touchdowns the way he has been, and DeAndre Hopkins is just going to be insane because him and Kyler Murray seem to be doing great. So his receivers and quarterbacks should be pretty consistent, so I'd expect some more big scores from him throughout the year. But I really wouldn't expect just the lights out scoring he's been getting thus far. It's just because I don't see the consistency on his roster, especially since right now in his starting lineup he's got Joshua Kelly, who's a backup. Yes, he had 100 yards last week, and he doesn't suck, but you never know on an offense like that who's going to have a hot hand, so it's kind of just an inconsistent thing to depend on. Also, me saying all this, he might score 200 points next week, so I'll just go fuck myself now. So final thing I'll talk about is the big blockbuster trade that went down between Michael and Nick Finley. I think it's a very interesting trade for both sides. Nick Finley trades one of his keepers in Derrick Henry, who's a solid player and one of his better running backs, kind of one of the better consistent guys on his team, going to get guaranteed touches. And he traded away Devontae Parker, who's going to be an inconsistent receiver, but would kind of be a plug and play, might get a touchdown any given week. But ultimately, Nick Finley is getting back Joe Mixon to replace Derrick Henry, which should be a solid option, but he plays for the Bengals, who suck. So, he might not get a consistent, consistently high score, but still a decent RB2, bottom tier RB1 potentially on any given week. But he gets back Calvin Ridley, who's been hot the first 2 weeks. So the big question is Derrick Henry going to stay on the field all season, given his significant workload, and is Calvin Ridley going to be able to keep up his significant production? That's going to be that's the big question going into this trade. I think both teams definitely benefit from this. It's nice Nick Finley gets that 5th round pick. But we'll kind of just have to see over time who may win or lose this trade. First glance, I think it's pretty solid for both teams. But I think Nick Finley got some needed depth in the wide receiver position without kind of sacrificing all of his running back talent. So it'll be really interesting seeing how this trade goes going forward. But I think it's a solid job by both fantasy managers. All right, now that is all I have for you this week. This week's matchups should be good. We will see if kind of the lower tier teams, myself included, can fucking get our shit together and score a lot of points. Or we'll see if the big dogs just keep packing on the points. Everybody, good luck this week, and I will talk to you guys later.